What do Montana and UNC football have in common? They both took top 25 Big Sky wins into their buys. They're back in action Saturday for our game of the week. Welcome to This Week in Big Sky Football.
Three, two, one, go!
Hello and welcome to This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm your host, Megan Robinson. Northern Colorado snapped an 18-game losing streak heading into their bye. It was their first win since 2022 and their first win over a ranked opponent since 2016. That ranked win, well, that was against Montana, who they host this week as they look for back-to-back top 25 wins. That matchup is our game of the week. And with that, I'd like to welcome in head coach Ed Lamb. You went into your bye week with your first ever win as the head coach of Northern Colorado on the road against a ranked opponent. Now that you've had a little bit of time for it to sink in, how does it feel?
Well, it felt a lot better in the hours right after it. We've moved on now. We've got our next opponent, and obviously, a victory at Weber State doesn't mean anything for our next game, which is against a very tough Montana team. But I think that our bye week preparation has been good. I think that our players have got a monkey off their back. I know I feel that as well. And now we can start talking about this season instead of, some losses that stretch back 2 seasons.
What have been some of the focuses at practice this week?
Well, we wanted to get 2 solid days of practice in and then 2 walkthroughs. We wanted to get some good lifts in, but also give the guys some days off. And so they've got a total of 4 days off. We're just trying to strike that balance. I think our team right now has some momentum. It's the first time that they've experienced a win together. And so we don't want to completely step away. We've got a lot fundamentally and tactically to work on. So we've tried to take a balanced approach to recovery, rest, but also preparation.
How do you find that balance between coming off a win over a ranked opponent and then going into the bye week and making sure your players stay mentally ready for this tough matchup with Montana?
Well, I think you said, our players, they understand what Montana represents, and they understand that we're facing a really good team. They're experienced enough in football to know that teams match up differently, and so beating Weber State because they beat Montana doesn't mean that we're going to beat Montana. We've got, I'm sure we have the full focus of University of Montana. Our players understand that the championships, the ability to go to playoffs, the ability to earn respect in this conference always goes through the Montana schools. I think it's a matchup that they're pretty naturally excited about. I haven't had to do a lot of preaching about why this game is important and why it's important to move on from Weber State.
I know you want to move on from Weber State. However, I do have to address your defense had 5 turnovers in that matchup, 4 fumbles, 1 interception. How do you have your defense build on that going into a high-powered offense like Montana's?
We didn't do anything a lot different against Weber State to cause those turnovers. We've been trying to get to the football. We've been trying to put our face on the football. I think there's always a part of every takeaway that there's just, some offensive a lack of technique going on. And so we can't count on Montana to do that. We just want to kind of keep doing what we're doing. There are always, I think, an element of fortune in fumbles caused and fumbles recovered. So we don't want to rely on that. It was a big difference in the game against Weber State. Counting on that against Montana is probably a foolhardy idea.
Your defense is going to have a busy day containing that high-powered Montana offense. Eli Gilman on the ground, Junior Bergen through the air, Keelan White. What's the best approach to try to contain that attack and limit big plays either through the air or on the ground?
For us, it starts up front. We've got to win up front with the defensive line. And those are the guys that don't get a lot of the attention offensively and defensively. But I think in order to play well and contain great skill players, and you mentioned some of those guys that Montana has, also their quarterback's been playing really clean football, excellent football. And, to have any chance to match up against those guys, we got to first match up front. We got to hold our gaps. We got to get pressure. We got to get push and on the line of scrimmage and make the job easier for our linebackers and secondary players.
After the break, head coach of the Grizz, Bobby Hauck, joins the show.
Yeah, Definitely. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. See you next week.
Bye.
All right. Thanks. All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm Megan Robinson, joined now by the head coach of the Montana Grizzlies, Bobby Hauck. Coach, enjoyed a bye week last week, but heading into that bye, your Grizzlies scored the final 21 points of the game to secure a homecoming win over NAU. What did you learn about your team in that victory?
Well, I think each of the last 3 weeks, we've kind of figured out that our guys are pretty good battlers and they'll fight it out to the finish. Would have been nice to score the first 21 in that game and not have to be so tight down to the end.
Coach, your defense had one of their better games against the Lumberjacks. How do you build on that going into the final stretch of the regular season?
Well, we had played 5 quarters of probably not up to our standard on the defensive side, and the defense played really well against NAU. I was excited about the performance. Again, it really comes down to just making plays and tackling and making plays when you have the opportunity to, and winning your one-on-one battles. So I think we can continue to build on that. I like the character of our guys, and I think that I really think that's the way it's going to go for us over the upcoming weeks.
Again, you had a bye last week after a come from behind exciting win at home. How does having a bye after a win like that impact your momentum going into this matchup with Northern Colorado?
Well, it's always a lot more enjoyable to go into that open date with the win. You feel more comfortable about taking a couple of days off, and you don't feel like you ought to be having an 80-play scrimmage on Saturday or things like that. So it was good. It was great to get the win. It's great to get back on track. NAU, I thought, gave an inspired effort here, and like we tend to get from our opponents. And I was there. They should be proud of their effort too. So it was a good win, and going into the open date, getting a couple of days to freshen up was probably really productive for our team.
What's been your focus at practice, like the couple of practices you had during the open week and now entering this week as you prepare to head down to Greeley?
Well, the fundamentals are always kind of part of it for us, but that's really spring ball and fall camp. Anytime you're in the season, your focus is on the opponent, the game plan, and trying to implement that and get that in place so you can go execute it on Saturday. And one of the things that I like about the practices on the open date is you have the ability to go back and work the fundamentals and drill that.
Coach, this week you're heading down to Greeley to face Northern Colorado. They have the leading punter in the conference in Hunter Green. He's averaging 48.3 yards per punt. How can a punter who can flip the field like that impact how you plan for this game?
Well, he does a great job. Their scheme is tough to defend. So, we are really well aware that they just beat Weber, who was coming off a win over us here in Missoula. So this should be a great football game. And back to Hunter, he does a great job. We're hoping that when he does hit it as far as he does, maybe we can get some returns.
What's your message to Junior Bergen, who's typically your return guy when he's facing a punter who can create massive swings in where the ball is placed on the field?
Well, I think Junior will view that as an opportunity. The farther that ball goes down the field, the more space there is between the line of scrimmage and the returner. So that gives our guys a little more space to operate in, and we're hoping that gives us an opportunity to make a play.
Still to come, hear from Big Sky Offensive Player of the Week, Larison.
We never set out to be the largest casino resort in the Pacific Northwest. We just wanted to be the best. But we forgot that being the best means more guests wanting more action, more jackpots, more big-name entertainment, more pedicures. Well, more everything. Until one day, you look up and realize, we need a new hotel tower. The new River Tower, to be exact. Northern Quest in Spokane, Washington. Now the largest. And yes, still the best.
Larison racked up 257 total yards of offense plus a touchdown, earning himself Offensive Player of the Week honors for the Big Sky. Lan, why do you think you've been so impactful this season, both on the ground and through the air?
I think that comes from just scheme in general. Plow trying to figure out a whole bunch of different ways to get the ball, whether it's running routes or running the ball. So I don't really mind either.
When I talked to Coach Plow last week, he said that he's had to get creative on the scheme so that you can be effective on offense. And since teams have kind of dialed into you as a running back, what challenges do you think you present defenses that you have the ability to be so effective as a receiver?
I mean, you got to defend the pass and you got to defend the run. You can't just stack the box. So you got to play a solid base defense, and you can guess, and that'll lead to explosives if you don't guess right.
What area of your game do you think is the strongest?
Just the competitive side of things. I come from a very competitive family. I'm a very competitive person, and confidence in like competitive like juice, just it flows and it translates to other people. And I think I do a pretty decent job at getting everyone fired up and ready to go.
You said you came from a competitive family. You also grew up doing rodeo. How does rodeo play into your competitive spirit on the football field?
I definitely think it plays into the competitive part, but it's a little different. I mean, rodeo is usually a 1 or 2 man sport, but I think a lot of it is the toughness side of things. Like you can't be a cowboy and not be tough. So I think that's where that really shows.
When I spoke with Coach Plow last week, I also asked him about your athleticism and the highlight reel play after play you've had so far this season. He said one of the things scouts have told him that they are impressed by the most with you is your balance. What do you do to work on your balance and improve that week in and week out?
Our running backs coach, Kevin Burke, he puts us through just a lot of weird balance circuits and things, which that could help too. But I think it's just knowing yourself and knowing what you can do in your like a physical capability, and just getting those reps at stuff like that, which is really hard, as something like getting hit and staying up, or that just comes with reps and timing and putting yourself in the best position to stay up.
UC Davis is currently 5th in the FCS top 25. You have some tough matchups still to go this season with Montana and Montana State. What will it take for the Aggies to win the Big Sky?
Keep setting that standard. I mean, every week the bar raises, and we just need to keep finding ways to elevate to that, keep turning over and finding ways to win games. We're very talented. We just need to figure out a way to keep the ball rolling and keep those W's rolling in.
Ahead, I sit down with Weber State alum and Dallas Cowboys special teams coordinator John Fassel. Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm Megan Robinson, joined now by a Weber State alum and current NFL coach, John Fassel. John, let's kind of go back to the beginning a little bit. You grew up the son of a Super Bowl winning coach. How important was football in your family?
I mean, it was very important just because you grow up around football your whole life. So it was kind of, born and bred in the locker room and been around it my whole life. And so it just kind of was in the blood. When I was playing in college at Weber State, then right after I got done playing, got right into coaching, and didn't really have that as my plan, but it kind of just worked out that way just because kind of that's how life was.
How did your time as a player at Weber sort of set you up for success as a coach?
I think, just being around some great coaches. Coach Arslanian was a fantastic coach for myself and our team. And then Coach Grable took over my senior year, so I was fortunate to be around some really good coaches. They made football fun. So I enjoyed the practices, the meetings, the games, the camaraderie.
One of the other coaches on that Cowboys staff is also a Big Sky alum, played for NAU. How would you describe the rivalry between you two while working for the Cowboys?
Good question. Well, right now I know Weber State is up 1 in the all-time series over NAU with our victory last year. We talk about it every week. How'd your Lumberjacks do? How'd your Wildcats do? And right now we're kind of riding the wave with all the victories and the losses like football does, but it's great to have a Big Sky buddy here in the office.
Two Big Sky coaches in the Cowboys coaching staff, on the Cowboys coaching staff. You both played at FCS level. What's the message to guys who might be in the FCS now who want to make it to the NFL, as you are a coach and knows what it takes?
Yeah. No different than if you're at Alabama or, the big schools is, you got a role and you master that role. And no matter where you're at, if you're good, we're going to find you. I mean, the scouting is so in depth with the places we go to and the roles we're looking for. We were just talking about Rashid Shaheed, with the Wildcats, and Khalil Dorsey, who was with NAU, that's now with the Lions. So Teron Johnson, we know about in Buffalo. So good players are everywhere. And if you're good and you're healthy and you're tough and your coaches have good things to say about you, you're going to make it. So being at a smaller level or a smaller town or a smaller college doesn't mean anything. It's about, mastering your role and being very productive in what you're asked to do.
This season, the Big Sky has had anywhere from 4 to 7 teams in the top 25 any given week. How does the strength of the Big Sky Conference set their players up for success?
Yeah, I think that you can always look at a player and you see, okay, what kind of competition does he play against? And, in our humble opinions, the Big Sky is the best, level of 1AA or FCS football there is, just as far as top to bottom. So we know who these players are playing against, and the caliber of competition is a big factor. So, all you guys out there playing at the Weavers and NAUs and Montanas and the States and all that kind of thing, play your game, and you're going up against as good as it is. So I just continue to encourage those guys to not worry about trying to force recognition. Just play the game and we'll find you.
Coming up on This Week in Big Sky Football, voice of the Grizz, Riley Corcoran, joins the show with his game picks. Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm your host, Megan Robinson. In less than 2 weeks, we will crown a Big Sky tournament champion for soccer. There are several teams still in contention for that regular season title. Who will prevail? Let's take a look at what's going on around the Big Sky. Alyssa Peters tallied 3 more assists in the Vandals' 4-0 win over their in-state rivals, Idaho State. And Montana improved to 9-0-1 at home. Will anyone be able to knock off the Grizz at South Campus Stadium in the tournament? Moving on to volleyball, both UNC and Eastern Washington are taking 5-match win streaks into Week 9. UNC remains at the top of the Big Sky after sweeping both Montana State and Montana 3-0. Eastern Washington is surging, winning back-to-back home matches over Idaho State and Weber State. And NAU is heating up after tallying consecutive wins against Montana and Montana State. Finally, the cross-country championships are in Pocatello next Friday, November 1st. The men's race begins at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, followed by the women's at noon. The meet will be streamed on ESPN+. That's what happened this week around the Big Sky. Joining me now is Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz. Riley, you have been in Missoula since 2016. How does this year's team compare to those of years past?
When you take a look at Montana's schedule this year compared to last year, they weren't really tested until they lost that game to Northern Arizona. Then we saw a different team. This year, they were tested mightily in the non-conference, and that got them ready to go for Big Sky play. Lost maybe a couple games they shouldn't have or didn't think they should have at the time, but now their backs are up against the walls.
Montana, Montana State, and UC Davis still all have to play each other, so it's going to be a wild finish in the Big Sky. What impact will those matchups have on the final playoff picture, do you think?
Oh, they'll be huge from a national landscape, Megan. They really will. We know that there has not been a 2-loss champion in the league in 19 years. So the likelihood that it's going to be someone outside the top 3 is slim. Those games, when they play each other, will be massive from a seeding standpoint. And we know how hard it is to win on the road in the playoffs, and to win on the road in consecutive games, even more difficult. So getting those coveted home games will be important. And I think obviously Montana State right now in the driver's seat for getting home field advantage all the way throughout the playoffs.
Let's turn it back to the present, focus on the upcoming games. Only 3 Big Sky games on the schedule this weekend. Let's start with Sacramento State at Idaho State. Who do you like in this one?
I tell you what, a very even matchup on paper when you look at it. Both teams averaging exactly 31 points per game. Both defenses allowing about 30 to 34 points per game. So it's going to come down to the intangibles. And I think these are two teams that are used to playing in tight games. I have a sense this will be another tight game in Pocatello. I'm going with the mini upset here. I think Idaho State beats Sacramento State at home.
Eastern Washington at Idaho. Idaho was able to hold off Cal Poly to move to 5-3 on the season. Eastern Washington hoping to improve to 500 in Big Sky Conference play. Eags or Vandals?
I'm going with the Vandals at home. This is a classic offense versus defense matchup, right? The offense of Eastern Washington in the top 3 in the league against the top 3 of Idaho. Who can control the line of scrimmage? And that's really where I like Idaho in this game. They can establish the run, get out to the lead. Eastern Washington, now they're a team you can't sleep on. They don't go away. They've shown that against Montana, against UC Davis in tight losses. Can't count them out. Mini rivalry matchup here, but I'm going to take the Vandals at home.
Finally, our game of the week, Montana heads down to Greeley to face the UNC Bears. Riley, Grizz or Bears?
This is a great matchup when you look at Northern Colorado coming off a win. And it's not lost on the Grizzlies that last year when these two teams played, it was 7-0 in the final 2 minutes of the second quarter. Ed Lamb has great respect up here in Missoula for what he's done in his career. I just think their offense is too explosive right now. 41 points per game. I'll take the Grizz in that explosive offense to get the road win.
Riley, thank you so much for taking the time to pick some games and talk Big Sky football with me.
Thanks, Megan.
Riley's going with the Grizz, but can the UNC Bears make it 2 top 25 upsets in a row? We will have to see on Saturday. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm your host, Megan Robinson. I will see you all next week. For all the latest Big Sky content, subscribe to our YouTube channel.